Hey guys, Fred Bowler here. Welcome to my channel, The Wildlife Ambassador. Today we're going to be talking about the opossum, which is not to be confused with the possum. Two separate animals. The possum, such as the brush-tailed possum, is found in Australia and New Guinea, way over there. The opossum is correctly pronounced scientifically. Ranges from Canada all the way down into South America, Mexico, Chile. So we're going to be solving some myths about the opossum. And they really are a beneficial animal, but a lot of people are ignorant to the natural history of the opossums. And we'll call it, yes, here's another thing. Everybody calls it possum, so we're probably going to shorten it up and call it the possum. It's whatever you're used to. But you're not going to find many people calling it the opossum. Because we all know what we're talking about here in North America when we say possum. Same thing on the Beverly Hillbillies when Granny used to, "Ooh, I'm gonna cook up some possum kid." That's what she's talking about, the opossum. So, we're going to be solving the myths. So let's sit back and take a gander. Thank you. Okay, just doesn't happen. It hasn't been documented. There's one case out of Texas suspecting a opossum of having rabies, but it has not been accurately verified. The majority of these suspicions have gone unproven, and so it's thought that the body temperatures of the opossum is too low to harbor that virus. It's not uncommon to see a possum roaming around in the daytime for whatever reason, whether they spent too long at a certain location eating, but it doesn't mean they are rabid if you see an opossum in the daytime. Actually, it's the same with raccoons, and people have that misconception that it's if you see a raccoon in the daytime, it's rabid. It does happen, and fairly frequently. Of course, we know that raccoons can carry and transmit rabies. So all in all, the opossum is a beneficial animal. They'll eat just about anything. They are an omnivore. And as long as you keep your gardens fenced, and you could even use a low voltage hot wire. It doesn't kill the opossum or the raccoons, but it will help to keep them out of the garden. And there is one thing about that is a concern to horse owners, and we're going to talk about that in a little later in this video. But all in all, the opossum is good to have around. Now, the opossum is North America's only marsupial. That is an animal that keeps their babies in a pouch, much like a kangaroo. There are a few other animals that do this as well. When the babies are born, they climb up into the pouch. In the opossum pouch, there's 13 nipples, and they're arranged in a circle. But opossums can have way more than 13 babies. I think a normal litter is about six to eight. But if she has more than 13, the competition between babies is just going to not allow the other babies to grow properly. And any more than 13, generally they end up not making it, and the mama's going to eat them, and that's just how she goes in recycling those little babies. So as they get too big for the pouch, they're going to climb out of that pouch and climb up to mama on her back, and they'll ride on her back up until the time they're ready to leave on their own. They actually wean out pretty early and are on their own, very small. A lot of people turn in baby opossums that are weaned and on their own, thinking they're still a little baby, depending on their mother. But that's not the case. They're very small when they wean out, able to defend for themselves. But during this time on the mama's back, she can be taken around, teaching what to eat, how to forage, get drinks, and all that. The babies will use their tail starts getting skilled at using their tail to hang from branches, lower themselves down from mama, going across the logs and things like that, using that prehensile tail to guide them along the way. The adult opossum is too heavy for that tail to support her or him. Male possums get a little bigger than the females. And so they only use that tail to as a prehensile tool to guide them through the bush, over fences, whatever they need to get along. The opossum lifespan, unfortunately, is not very long. It's surprisingly short for a mammal of this size. It's an average of 3 to 4 years. Some have been noted living a little longer, but generally it's 3 or 4 years. These are the tracks of an opossum. When opossums walk, they walk over their front feet on top of each other. So they make this asterisk type of print, which is confusing if you don't know what these prints are. You're like, what kind of animal made these? Some kind of injured animal. But it can be normal where you can see the little 5-toed prints. But generally when they're on a mission and they're walking on top of their footprints. Now people think opossums are related to rats, and you'll often hear, oh, look at that big rat. Nothing could be farther from the truth. They're not related, not even close. And an opossum will actually eat a rat, which is why another reason I think they're good to have around. But you got to be careful because everything eats opossums. Your dogs will kill them. Hawks eat them. Felines, and they have a lot of predators. But they're overall good to have around. And this one lives in my garden, and I don't mind her or he there. It's eating roaches. It'll eat rats if it comes across a rat nest. It's going to eat the entire nest. And so they're generally good to have and low impact. She doesn't do any. I don't have to worry about anything that she's going to do destructive wise around my house, and they're very welcome. A common place to find opossums is under sheds. And I actually want opossums under my shed. I've had a lot of people ask me to remove them from under the shed because they just don't like them. But if you remove an opossum from under a shed, you're inviting more animals that you're not going to be happy with. Opossum's going to keep things like snakes and rodents and roaches. It's going to help keep those out away from your property, out from under the shed. You remove that possum, these things are going to move in. And if you're worried about them getting into garbage, generally if you have your garbage contained in, say, like a 55-gallon container or metal can, a possum's not going to be able to get into it. And the same thing about bears, you have to secure your garbage. If you don't, things are going to get into it. Now, another really cool thing about opossums is they have venom neutralizing proteins. So if a rattlesnake bites an opossum, he's just going to turn around and eat it. It's not going to affect the opossum in a negative way. And these proteins, they're actually called lethal toxin neutralizing factors. And these proteins inhibit venoms from taking effect on the opossum. So this is even another reason not to harm the opossums, because the science is looking into whether these proteins can be used on a human scale. So that is pretty cool. One negative thing about the opossum, if you own horses or in the horse world, is equine protozoal Myleoencephalitis, or commonly called EPM in the horse world. First off, I am not a veterinarian, but I'm familiar with this affliction. It affects the neurological system of the horse, the brain, and the spinal cord. The horses will exhibit lack of motor skills and other symptoms. And if you suspect your horse, of course, of having this, then of course you would consult your vet. But a good thing to note is that in the veterinary community, they suspect many, like 90% of the horses to be exposed to this, but not all the horses come down with it or show the effects of it. So it's a very common thing, but you should keep your feed bins closed and clean. As you can see in this feed bin, I came in one morning and there was an opossum. Somebody left the top off the feed. Might have been me, but and an opossum got in there and chowed down, and then he fell asleep. Must have ate so much. So naturally, we would throw this feed away because we didn't know if he defecated or pooped peed in there. But you should, of course, keep your stables clean, keep your stalls clean. Opossums are always going to be around horse stalls and horse stables. We had a large collection of horses that was in our care. At times there was over 100 horses, and there was opossums everywhere. Not one horse came down with EPM. Now, while reading up on EPM, it is hypothesized that this protozoal parasite is in roadkill, and that's where the opossum will get it from feeding on carrion and then spreading it that way. So they were talking about if people are way inland or if you're off the grid away from any roads where animals get hit often, that even lessens the worry more. But generally, there were so many opossums, like I said, around our ranch. We didn't worry about it, and we saw no symptoms in our horses.